Everywhere is burning. We don't feel safe.
Businessmen picked up Kalashnikov assault rifles to protect their life's work and their family's future. Ask the Americans, demanded one. Why don't they protect our belongings, our lives, and our homes? That's what we need. This isn't the freedom Bush talked about. Everywhere you turned in the capital Friday, there were looters.
This is still, money still.
While there seemed little complaint about the looting of officials' residences, the looting of honest shop owners was condemned and confronted. We are taking up guns to protect our market and our belongings. And please tell the military of America to come here and to protect our market. A day earlier prompted the entire medical staff to evacuate. In their place, a local religious leader put armed young men around the facility. Syed Rahim al-Musawi said the hospital needed security and it needed the doctors to return. But even though his so-called security force donned the blue medical garb to help identify the good from the bad, it is unlikely any doctors will return so long as these or any other gunmen are inside. Even the truckload of medical supplies that arrived while we watched wasn't all it seemed.
And the people stealing these medicine was catched from the volunteer.
These medical supplies had been looted from a central warehouse. Now a truck was bringing them directly to the hospitals for safekeeping. The question foremost in many Iraqis' minds was whether anywhere in Baghdad was really safe.
It's a time for anarchy, disorder, violence, the settling of old scores against Ba'ath Party members. The looting of Baghdad is now in its third day. From banks, government offices, UN agencies, the homes of Ba'ath Party supporters, even some hospitals. There isn't much left to loot. In one of the city's more affluent suburbs, the looters have even been taking away thoroughbred racehorses. Through all of this, it's the military power under the Geneva Conventions which has the responsibility post-conflict for law and order. The military power is the Americans.
Behaviors that are akin to looting, actual looting, ongoing. Some fights have occurred. Some of this we attribute to the fact that the regime has been pulled away and people are celebrating liberation. In other cases, they're taking advantage of a vacuum that does form.
The Americans' priority remains the protection of their forces.
We've got the perimeter secure. Just with the suicide attacks, it's kind of nerving. You got to be real careful on who you process through. Make sure you're identifying any bad guys if there's any out there.
The Americans have been asked to help to break into underground cells at the notorious military intelligence headquarters, where some Iraqis believe their relatives are held. They've been inside for 4 days with no food, he says. We know they're in there. The regime has gone, but only lawlessness has taken its place. Martin Bell, 5 News.
Saddam Hussein's feared torture cells. Others came in hope of news of long-disappeared brothers, fathers and sons.
When a man say no to Saddam Hussein, they bring him in the dark, in the night, alone, put him in that building. And they do all they can to torture him. When you get in that building, they stone. If they can't talk, they will tell you how many people died there.
On April the 24th, 1980, she said, men from military intelligence took her brother. Since then, they've had no information. Exactly the same happened to our uncle in 1981, said the second woman. They accused him of insulting Saddam Hussein. We haven't seen him since. Suddenly, a man appeared with a different message.
Saddam is the crown of the Arabs. The people inside there had probably been causing trouble.
Saddam Hussein executed 5 of my family, cried the other man. They were probably spies, he shouted back. Then someone else weighed in with his accusation. A fight was about to break out. Before the Americans left, they had to get someone to perform a ritual for the camera. They picked an old man and told him what to do. The paint was provided. No paintbrush, unfortunately, but gloves and a rag instead. That done, the troops on the perimeter rolled out, and the people flocked in. No one seemed to know quite where to go. It's a huge complex. Iraqis insist that there are still prisoners underground here. The Americans inside the compound were trying to find out if that's true.
We have searched this entire building. We've patrolled all the areas around it. So far we have found absolutely nothing. But just to make ourselves feel complete in this mission, we are putting a shape charge into the floor of the basement that will blow down to tell us if there's another floor.
After the detonation, we followed the colonel into the building.
Had a standoff off the ground there.
Under the concrete, just earth.
It's just straight dirt, sir.
Just straight dirt? Oh, yeah, that's afraid of that.
The smoke and dust in here is now choking after the Americans detonated their shape charge. The Iraqis said that they were sure that there were prisoners still being held underground here. Many of them were looking for their relatives, who they said had been tortured in this terrible place. But for the moment, nobody is able to find them. They're still looking. The Stones keep their secrets. In their heart of hearts, people who rushed here today must know that those who disappeared 20 years ago will never come back. They just hope the Americans can unlock the prison door and help them find out what happened in the terrible decades of Saddam Hussein. Lindsay Hilsum, Channel 4 News, Baghdad.
This amateurish poster of a smiling Saddam Hussein beside the burning Twin Towers was found by soldiers of the 3rd Infantry Division in a compound in northwest Baghdad. The inscription reads, "For a better Iraq, for a better people."
This appears to be some kind of maintenance facility for assembling or repairing missiles.
Also in the same compound, situated near a residential area, were a collection of missile components. The banner that was found in this compound does not, of course, provide conclusive proof of a link between Al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein. What it does show, however, is that the interests of their supporters were converging. Not far away, in another compound, was a training area for the local Al-Quds, or reservists. Here, a more common link with Islamic extremism, hatred of Israel. In the shooting range, the targets wore the Star of David on their foreheads. Likewise on the targets outside.
So this is Jewish filth in Arabic.
Here too, taking a look at that extraordinary poster, we found the most powerful man in Baghdad, the commander of the 3rd Infantry Division.
They see that we're here to stay now, that we're going to make it happen. It's not an empty promise. So the people are coming out and by the hundreds of thousands welcoming us. And so we're going to try to make sure that this last group of terrorists, the last Fedayeen, are cleaned up.
In fact, the local commander says people here are even helping them find weapons and ammunition belonging to the Al-Quds and Fedayeen. They are being taken away and gathered for destruction. The main fight that remains is now in the north. Carl Dinnan, Channel 4 News, Baghdad.
This is peacetime Baghdad. Looters are swarming over the city like ants. And when everything is stripped, buildings are set alight. This government ministry survived the war, but not what followed. Baghdad's becoming a city of barricades. Behind them, its residents wait in fear. Just opposite, the Agriculture Ministry was being ransacked. What starts as theft from public buildings can soon move to private homes and businesses. All this is watched warily from across the road.
What can we do?
I meet Dr. Walid Frangoul, a veterinary surgeon. He's in despair.
These people, they destroy the computer and sell it with 10,000 dinars. It means $3. they know nothing but just destroy. We need electricity. We need bread. Electricity for Baghdad. The bread, no bread to eat.
The International Committee of the Red Cross says Baghdad's medical system is collapsing. Looking at this, it's little wonder. What we're seeing here is the sheer force of personality of one good man putting a stop to the looting at this facility here, the Central Laboratory of Public Health. And what Iraqis will tell you is it would take only a very small effort by the Americans now to stop the looting. Just one soldier outside a hospital, one soldier outside a school, and they say the looting would cease. And this is what they're asking the Americans to do. But the Americans are worried about their own security. They stick together. They don't have the boots on the ground to police Baghdad like this. So one irony, they're asking the police officers of the former regime to come back.
You are late, too late now. We are waiting for you.
And this is the scale of the problem they're facing. From total control under Saddam, there's now total chaos. This is what the families have been waiting for ever since the squadron was deployed at the start of February. For them, the war is over, and now they can look forward to being reunited with their husbands and boyfriends.
The men of Treble 1 Squadron Lucas have spent the last 2 months enforcing air superiority over Iraq. Now it was time to celebrate a mission success and to be reunited with loved ones. Husband and wife, father and son, a baby daughter so much bigger than when he last saw her. This is what it means to get home safely from war.
In southern Iraq tonight, after British forces called in nuclear experts to investigate suspicious drums north of the border town of Qasr. Earlier this evening, there was a mixture of excitement and apprehension amongst British soldiers as they talked through the possibility that they could have found the smoking gun, evidence that Saddam Hussein has broken UN sanctions by importing or developing nuclear materials. The few locals who turned up to see what was happening were ordered out of the area. Acting on a tip-off, soldiers from 23 Pioneer Regiment arrived here this evening, searching for radioactive material. They found 2 suspicious canisters inside a manhole cover. They were marked radioactive in English. Now, it's quite possible that these could be for industrial uses, and this could be another false alarm. But more tests are now underway. What's the next move? Who's going to arrive?
We're waiting for an American special team to come in, and they should be able to identify it clearly, and then they'll take it from there. Our job, as it stands at the minute, is just to remain here, keep the cordon in this area to make sure that no one else comes and tampers with it in the meantime.
Yeah, on the side it's embossed radioactive. Mm-hmm. On the top of the left-hand tin there's a number, which I've got the details here. Okay.
The Pioneers called in an American nuclear, biological and chemical expert for an assessment. They agreed to film for us inside the manhole cover, which is in the far corner of the site. The American expert decided it was time to call in the full nuclear team, and a 1 kilometre zone was sealed off. The RAF Specialist NBC team arrived and put on breathing apparatus and took radiation readings with Geiger counters. They found no unusual radiation, indicating that any radioactive substance was well shielded.
In terms of the probability of actually containing radioactive sources, I think it's a high probability. The containers that they are stowed in, or certainly the description that I've had of the containers they're stowed in, indicate that they are radioactive sources and the correct containers for those. In terms of what they could be used for, well, it is an industrial area, so they are likely to be industrial-type radioactive sources. However, that doesn't mean to say that if they fell into the wrong hands, they couldn't be used as in a dirty bomb or a weapon of mass effect, for that matter.
So the 2 inner containers with their outer drums have been taken away for further testing tonight. The most likely scenario is industrial isotopes, but these heavy-duty inner chambers are the type used to house far more serious nuclear materials. The test should come back in a matter of days.
Any more, they're being rounded up and punished.
Where's the American? Where's the dreams of American?
The people of Iraq's capital want the anarchy at an end. The scale of the looting is threatening a humanitarian crisis. Armed medics guard the city's ransacked hospitals, but the medical system is on the brink of collapse. Iraqis want the Americans to do more to restore order.
The looting right now is a problem that we're trying very hard to deal with. What we're doing is trying to get the Baghdad police to come back to work and do their jobs and try to maintain civic order.
In Kirkuk too, these Iraqis have turned on their countrymen. At makeshift checkpoints, every vehicle is stopped and the guilty pulled out. Cars and vans are stripped and the looted wares destroyed. This man is despairing at the senselessness of it all. The scene in downtown Kirkuk is very different. Traffic is flowing freely and order has been restored. Uniformed Iraqi traffic police are back at work, although they stand shoulder to shoulder with the militia. Here too the looters are caught red-handed. It seems in Kirkuk at least the anarchy of the previous days is subsiding. The toppled statue of Saddam, now a children's climbing frame. To ensure peace endures in this key oil city, US troops are out in force, patrolling the streets and securing key buildings. It's claimed other areas of Iraq are also falling into line.
It's uneven throughout the country. In the south, where we've been for some time, where the clerics have been speaking out against looting and for civil order, where some of the Iraqi citizens themselves are saying, let's don't loot and that sort of thing, that actually the situation is pretty good. In Qasar, it's in good shape. In Basra, it's looting has been going down over time as we track it. So as we go up from the south, it's getting better and better for obvious reasons.
But in Mosul, which fell yesterday, anarchy still reigns. While the fight to control the disorder continues, the next battle is looming, the taking of Tikrit. Filmed before the war started, this is Saddam's hometown and power base and could be the coalition's last stand. Carol Mitchell, BBC News.
Time in years. That as Iraqi soldiers walk south towards Baghdad after abandoning their positions. Brent Sadler reports.
American troops guard a production facility in the Kirkuk oil fields of northern Iraq. But while US soldiers protect Iraq's oil wealth, much of the country is on a looting spree, and there aren't enough soldiers to stop it. Like in many parts of Iraq, swarms of looters strip the old regime bare, offices ransacked, furniture piled high, with no sign of remorse. There is no longer a leadership to herd people like cattle, to do things they would rather not do, like these defeated Iraqi soldiers, no longer afraid of possible execution if they deserted their posts. They surrendered their weapons and most of their uniforms to Iraqi Kurds before being sent home. The seemingly harmless and in many cases bootless remnants of a northern army. Nothing here is now the same as it was. Especially for people like Sabah Tahir, a utility manager, attempting to get his team of engineers past the Americans to restore power in Kirkuk. They are accustomed to taking orders from the old Ba'ath Party, but now they must deal with a US soldier. But Sabah is politely turned away for security reasons.
Because there is no enough forces here at the region. They said that tomorrow, maybe, there will be enough forces here, and they will allow us to go.
He can speak freely to me for the first time in his long career, but his evasive answers speak volumes about a fear that's left behind.
Is there anything you'd like to say about life under Saddam Hussein?
Please. Okay, now.
You're still afraid?
Okay, now.
Why are you still afraid? Quiet.
Okay, now.
Why are you still afraid?
Okay, now, please.
Why are you still afraid?
I don't know. We don't know what happens now. We don't know.
You're still afraid of Saddam Hussein?
Everybody afraid of Hussein, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Saddam Hussein is still at large. Securing the oil fields is a top priority for the US military, but so too is restoring law and order in Iraq,
where many sectors of society have plunged into preliminary chaos. Brent Sadler, CNN, near Kirkuk in northern Iraq.
All afternoon, it went like this. Someone announces he's heard a voice, a call for help. This one coming from down in the well at what was the Iraqi intelligence headquarters. A mob rushes over to hear it for themselves. So loud, so excited, so unsilenceable, the crowd, that no one can really tell if there's anyone down there. Someone spots a hole in the ground, and throngs begin digging furiously.
Do you know for sure that there are people down there? Yeah. Maybe thousands. That's your son?
He's on his son.
Is he here, you think?
The consensus of the crowd, a vast subterranean prison exists here, still holding countless Iraqis abducted over decades by Saddam Hussein's secret police.
Anyone talk anything about Saddam Hussein, anything, they get him and his brothers, his sisters, his father, his mother, and get it in the jail.
And in here, there's another hole.
Lieutenant Colonel Sanderson of the U.S. Army indulges what he suspects is but an urban legend.
Will make us feel better about it because, you know, we may have people over here also, you know, from the first Gulf War. And I just want to make sure we've covered every avenue. We've had infantry patrols all over this place looking around, making sure that we can just make sure we have a strong gut check before we leave here that we have not in any way, shape, or form overlooked anything. We're going to put a shaped charge in that will blow down to find out if there's another level below the building.
The charge reveals only dirt. One man shows photographs he claims he found inside the building before the U.S. Army arrived. He holds up keys and announces he knows where to find the doors that they unlock. The Army allows a small group of men to form a search party. Wading into a flooded basement, the men look over walls and behind doors, but ultimately find no locks to even try the keys.
Yes. Everybody says they know where the prison is.
This is a fisherman.
More and more people come forward, trying to convince the U.S. soldiers to continue their search.
Excuse me, sir. That is your brother?
Yes.
One man holds up a document he says he discovered here, the arrest record of his brother from 10 years prior.
These people desperately want to find lost loved ones. I mean, it's a big deal now.
They might be hearing ghosts.
I won't say that, but you know, these people are glad to have their freedom back, and they're looking for all those people who lost their freedom.
In their searching, we sense a sad unwillingness to recognize the obvious. The echoes they hear are really their own voices, and the darkness they peer into, a vast existential nothingness. Jason Bellini, CNN, Baghdad, Iraq.
A lot of cities were bypassed. A lot of Iraqis never saw a coalition soldier. Ash-Shatra is such a place. But their first brush with coalition forces was not with Americans or British, but with brother Iraqis who call themselves the Free Iraqi Force, or FIF. And for both the FIF fighters and the coalition, this foray into Ash-Shatra was also a first. The first time an Arab Iraqi force has been used in this war. A symbolically important picture showing Iraqis on their own soil struggling against the remnants of Saddam Hussein's army and paramilitary. Comprised of Iraqi exiles from around the world, some ex-military, some civilian, they ventured into Ash-Shatra with the U.S. Special Forces who had helped to train them.